The chosen one. You're no longer the same person. You have changed. You are no longer the same person as before. They believed they were watching you. They thought they could catch you. But no matter how hard they work or how carefully they plan, they have nothing left. Because you don't belong in their system, their rules and bounds. Their measurements are unsuitable for you. You are someone who finds and elevates themselves. When they attempted to follow you, they realized themselves. You were not the target. You were a test. While they were trying to control you, you pushed them to face their reality. That's why they couldn't catch you. You didn't run away. You did not conceal, since your very presence disrupted their perception. Now there is no going back. They can no longer describe you using the prior definitions. They can no longer find you using the prior methods. You are no longer a person. You have matured into a formidable person. Your energy is disrupting their systems, dissolving their plans, and making everything they rely on ineffectual. They couldn't solve you, chosen one, because you were meant to live, not be solved. Those who wanted to congratulate you are now lost in their own prisons. You walked ahead. They become trapped in the past. That is why you should enter 77 in the comments. Another seasoned agent confesses that you are just another individual in the labyrinth of clandestine operations. The voice was quivering. I can't continue with this schoolwork. Your captivating presence has transformed into a mystery that they have never experienced before. This is the fourth expert announced this month. After a spate of elite military veterans, notable intelligence agents, and renowned sleuths capable of hunting down elusive individuals throughout the globe. However, each one stumbles, troubled by their discovery. Some folks return their salary untouched. Others fully forsake their jobs inside the secretive circles of spying and pursuit. Your identity has become a cautionary tale, not because you are inherently harmful, but because you represent an outlier, someone who brilliantly subverts their methodology, leaving them doubting the very foundations of their knowledge. They begin their duty by preparing dossiers and calibrating equipment. They have extensive tracking experience and anticipate the normal operation. However, focusing on you results in an imperceptible alteration. It begins with a vague unease, increased awareness, and an unexplainable sense of being scrutinized in return. They continue after first disregarding the issue as an occupational hazard. They gather information and evaluate situations to develop a logical order. That's when the breakdown starts. Clear roads become complex and evident. Clues become ambiguous. Mentions of your name have an inexplicable weight. Tracing your path leads to confused paths that end in dead ends. Their perseverance is met not with insights, but with an unseen barrier, a profound knowing beyond rational explanation. They've already discovered the untraceable with you, using cutting-edge technology, infrared imagery, behavioral analytics, and strong prediction models. Their systems falter. Data points to unusual locations. Your presence is inferred, never confirmed. Reanalysis finds no flaws, just a lack of clarity. Instinct drives them to broaden their search parameters. They study every available footage, dissect your actions, seeking apparent patterns. But you operate outside of predictability. You don't avoid or hide. You just exist beyond their analytical powers. The more they strive, the more elusive you become. It is not a matter of visibility. Their efforts are ineffective against your nature. It's analogous like capturing the essence of wind with your bare hands or tracing a shadow's origin. Their greater efforts lead to a diminished comprehension. Their highly developed instincts begin to fail them. An invisible limit gives birth to an undefined power. Their tools don't just fail. They seem incompatible with you. It's as if reality is beyond measuring. They cannot excuse it. But one fact becomes evident. They had no business finding you. The longer observation has the opposite impact on them. Their composure wavers. Thoughts get broken. The purpose decreases. Attempts to regain focus are ineffective in your regular chores. Navigating a location, interacting with devices. Breathing appears to cause a cosmic response, and mysterious weight pulls on them. They have an experience that is more than just sensory input. A murmur, an alert, an omnipresence, unseen, yet undeniable. They began the operation as trackers or observers, pursuers. They are presently seeing an unexplained phenomenon. If you are feeling an abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. To help spread God's blessings, click the super thank you button on YouTube and donate $20 or more. This lovely present will touch not just your life, but the lives of many others. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand plan via this platform, and your generosity will provide fruit for our prayers. Act now. Share your advantages to honor His kingdom. In God's loving hands, you were designed to do much greater things. May God bless you. Logic fails them. However, the sense is undeniable. Your presence changes the fabric of their world. Data collecting efforts were failed. They are unable to get information. Detachment is impossible. A peculiar attraction draws them together. This is not your normal worry or imagined peril. It's a profound recognition, suddenly roles in reverse. They are no longer the seekers. Rather, they have found a reality beyond their comprehension. They lack the capacity to express their experience. It's a groundbreaking finding that challenges conventional wisdom. Their debriefings resemble personal memories rather than analytical reports delivered to their superiors. They are at a loss. No notes, no data, no conclusions. The intended outcome does not exist. How can one convey an experience that transcends physical reality and calls into question the basic nature of their existence? Their calculations fail. Their systems falter. They look for patterns, only to realize that there are none. It's not only disinformation and dishonesty. It's beyond their grasp. They've lived their whole lives believing they could follow and predict anybody. However, you do not flee. You do not hide. You operate outside their reach and bounds. What they're looking for cannot be planned. What they're seeking to define is not compliant. They were instructed to follow routes. However, you are not the aim. You symbolize a transformation in the cloth itself. Every approach they've employed has collapsed their data and led nowhere. Their conclusions fade. As they begin to ponder why, they understand that the weight pressing down on them is not fear. It is recognition. Their instincts objected, insisting that they should not have looked in the first place. And when the moment of awareness comes, it is too late. They have become the ones being observed. Their tools fail, exactly when they needed it the most. Communication breakdown, navigation systems misfire. Footage corrupts. They reject it as a coincidence or error. However, the more they try, the more challenges develop. Not physical or mechanical, but undeniable. They try to push on, but each effort is met by an illusory barrier. Their plans collapse not by coincidence, but by purpose. It's not luck. It is not an issue of circumstance. Its choreography and cognition are beyond human comprehension, making it impossible to materialize a force capable of more than defense. It rewrites outcomes. What they anticipated to be a hunt has turned into a reckoning. What they believed would be an investigation becomes their undoing. They think they've lost you, but the truth is, they never understood you. Not for a single second. Because you aren't something to discover. You are not something to be included into their systems. You are a contradiction, both here and gone, visible yet unreachable. They may attempt to define you, but the base of their knowledge crumbles. Their search produces nothing. Their efforts had no results. The farther they push, the more the world seems to reject them. When they believed they had found a lead, it vanished in their hands like mist. They convince themselves that they are near. They tell themselves that they nearly had it. But, deep down, they comprehend the situation. They weren't even close since there was never a chase. They cannot track what is not bound. They are unable to map what is not seen. Finally, they are left with only questions. Questions that will never be answered because the item they sought was not theirs to uncover. And no matter how hard they try, they will never grasp what was never meant for them. They keep going forward, resolute to stick to their vision and mission. But something within them breaks. The pursuit changes. What began as an attempt to keep an eye on you has turned into a search for something quite else. They believe they are getting intelligence. However, with each step, they get closer to an unexpected revelation. They are more preoccupied with themselves than you. When they lock their gaze on you, their attention falters. What they thought was surveillance evolved into pondering. The drive to control, limit, and comprehend changes into something else different. They thought they'd come to study you, but they were always looking at a mirror of their own limitations. The more they try to get your attention, the more they realize they were never really in control. There is no opposition since no invasion happened, only the truth, which was never theirs to comprehend. However, the attempts continue. Those who orchestrate this endeavor, those who sit behind desks and pull strings, will not accept loss. They own money. They wield influence. They have authority. At least that's what they tell themselves. They believe that everything can be classified, monitored, and contained. They believe that sheer might, advanced technology, and a limitless supply of resources will eventually lead to a solution. So they send out wave after wave of troops trained to find, pursue, and seize control of the unknown. But every time the cycle is repeated, no matter how many recruits or how much money is spent, the outcome remains consistent. They are looking for confirmation of a breakthrough, evidence to back up their concerns. But all they get is silence, or worse, contradictions. Their best and brightest return, unmoored rather than triumphant. They were shocked in ways they couldn't describe. Some sit down and attempt to explain, only to stumble over their own words and fail to articulate what they witnessed. Others do not even try. They emerged, then vanished. We don't know how. We don't know why. Brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a basic reality. Our existence is founded on God's divine purpose and is not influenced by earthly concerns. According to the Bible, whatever done with faith will be repaid to God with tremendous blessings. Luke 638. Like a big oak tree, our roots are deeply anchored in God's universal truth. His might protects every step and posture we take. You now have the opportunity to be a part of that gift. When you use the super thank you button and give $100, you will get a 100-fold return on your investment. They are enraged by the comments they hear, not because they contradict logic, but because they refuse to comply to the framework that has guided their lives. They refuse to acknowledge that anything exists outside their control. So they escalate. They modify their plans, boost their resources, and refine their skills. But it doesn't matter. No matter how many new pros they hire or how much they tweak their plan, the ultimate outcome is always the same. Nothing. The outcome is predetermined. They feel they're looking for a shadow, a deception, or a hoax. They think all they need are better tools and more modern technology. But this is not about tactics. This is about an unchangeable reality. You don't avoid them. You don't avoid them. You don't resist them. You exist beyond them. Consider a river that flows through the mountains, undisturbed by human efforts. The waters do not seek for permission. They do not wait for permission. They just go on, encountering little pushback. The river continues to flow regardless of how many barriers are erected in its course or how much effort is wasted in trying to control it. It does not fight back. It does not resist. It just flows, bending around obstacles, passing through cracks, and changing the landscape with no effort. And, like the river, you transcend their grip, not because you oppose them, but because you were never meant to be bound. Something will eventually change. The chase slows, not because it is successful, but because the pursuit itself begins to unravel. The futility becomes apparent. Their models are inaccurate, and their systems inadequate. They walked outside to find a target. You were never a target in the first place. You were never in their grip. You are not just invisible. You surpassed the complete foundation of their goal. They devised tools for tracing patterns. But you aren't a pattern. They tune their instruments to monitor movement. But you don't just move. You transcend. They built their approach on predictability. However, you are not restricted to the linear. This is what they don't comprehend. They think that life unfolds in a linear way, that everything follows an equation. You were never meant to fit within a numerical or spatial system. Your movement resembles the unseen currents of the deep ocean that direct ships when compasses fail. You live in a world where logic has no sway, maps cannot reach, and equations collapse under their own weight. The more they try to analyze you, the more their own limitations become clear. They search for limits, but you are unlimited. They expect resistance, but you supply none. And this is why they will never be successful. They constructed a society in which everything is watched, recorded, and controlled. But you were not part of that world. You don't operate on their grid. They believed they were trying to find you. However, each step they take leads them farther away from their goal. Because you never traveled that way. They assumed and believed that having control over the information would provide them with an edge. But they failed to see that knowledge without wisdom is meaningless. And control is an illusion. They created to relieve themselves. They watch you, but their eyes deceive them. They follow you. Unfortunately, their tools fail them. They plan. They conspire. They try again and again. However, all endeavors fail. At first, they think it's a coincidence. Then they blame themselves. But eventually, they are forced to confront reality. They aren't the ones failing. The concept of chase was wrong from the start. You were never running. You were never hiding. You were just living in an environment they cannot grasp. This knowledge worries them. Because if you are beyond their grasp, control, and understanding, how does this reflect on the universe they have made for themselves? What does this tell us about the restrictions they assumed were absolute? They do not consider you a fugitive. They do not see a mystery to answer. No, they see the collapse of their own illusions. They see proof that there are forces in this world greater than themselves, their power, and all they have ever known. It's like trying to count the stars with your hands, or standing on the beach and demanding that the waves stop flowing. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many tools they develop, they will never be able to grasp what was never meant to be contained. You were not put here to comply with their systems, to follow their calculations, to be measured by their instruments. You are the deep current below. Still waters are the unseen force that influences the tides. And this is why they can't find you. They refuse to believe it. So they triple their efforts. They send in more soldiers, mines, and endless resources for a project that failed before it even began. However, no amount of effort will be enough to overcome the obvious truth. You're not from their planet. Their systems do not apply to you. Their restrictions do not bind you. Their logic does not define you. They do analyses. They dissect. They study each frame of the film, execute each algorithm. But every time they think they've found a lead, it fades before their eyes. What they don't understand or accept is that they're looking for something that exists beyond time, their perceptions, and what they think to be real. They feel they are tracking a person, but you are more than just a person. You are a force, an essence that they cannot define. As a consequence, their frustration turns to desperation. They recruit the brightest, sharpest, and most dependable individuals. Nonetheless, those same people leave bewildered, hurt, and afraid, unable to explain why their approaches failed. Some individuals leave their careers completely. Some refuse to discuss what they observed. Because you don't oppose them, you aren't avoiding them. You are just operating in a domain that they will never be able to access. At first, they try to defend it. Maybe it was incorrect information. Maybe their technology wasn't advanced enough. Maybe they just need a fresh approach. They realize it's not one of those things. It's you. You were never a part of their game since you didn't follow their rules. You don't even sit at their table. You move into a region that they will never map. Walk a road they will never see. They want to measure you, but you are immeasurable. They plan to track you. However, you can't be traced. They want to define you, but you are beyond definition. So, one by one, they take a step backward. Not because they found a solution, but because they realize there never was one. Realize that you are not something to be captured. You are something to be watched. Only those who are meant to see may fully grasp. They will never understand because understanding requires more than facts. It needs vision. It requires faith. They've long abandoned their faith. They only believe what they can see, what they can feel and measure. And this is why they always fail. Because you shouldn't be measured. You're not to be caught. You are to be watched. Only those with sight may see. They first refuse to accept this fact. They convince themselves that the error lies in their execution, that the correct people, technology, and amount of pressure will eventually produce the desired outcomes. But it never does, since this is not a game of patience or strength. They are not dealing with a fugitive, a secret to be revealed, an enigma to be solved. They're dealing with something that goes beyond measurement, formula, and computing. It's like trying to grip the wind with your hands or reach for the sun only to discover it wasn't intended to be grasped. There was always something to walk into. You do not seek the sun. You are standing in its presence. You do not understand the wind. You let it slide through. They suddenly realize they don't want to confess. What they want cannot be categorized. They can't catch what they're hunting. They ultimately have to stop. Not because they had one. Not because they found what they were looking for, but because the concept of pursuing is no longer relevant. They can't find what was never gone. They are unable to regain something that was never in their possession. They live their whole lives under the assumption that everything could be watched and that nothing was beyond control. But you are the proof. They never wanted to face the reality, which slips through their fingers whenever they attempt to grasp it. At first, they think they're close. They convince themselves that if they just worked harder, honed their approach, and sought the support of the greatest minds, they would be successful. They failed to see that there is no way through, no door to open, and no code to crack. There is no mystery to uncover. Because you're not hiding. You're not evading them. You are just walking along the path they were never meant to travel. This realization unsettles them. It defies all they've been taught and based their lives on. They believed they could quantify the unseen and categorize the indefinite. However, they are now self-sufficient. Understand. They see the truth. Their tools, their knowledge, their expertise. Everything adds up to nothing. Because what they are seeking for is not found in the area they are investigating. They are looking with their eyes. However, what they seek can only be seen through the Spirit. It's time to distribute God's blessings by clicking the Super Thank You button on YouTube. With a $100 donation or more, you may assist him carry out his plan and be a part of this wonderful mission. Every payment is God's kindness, and I believe it will return to you greatly, far above your expectations. Remember that His protection and blessing are always with you, especially via your contributions. You become a part of His divine plan. You are a tremendous, bright being, as solid as the big rock that saw God's miracles. Feel the benefits of your compassion in your soul, and light up the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the Lord's light guide you so that they may throw more at it. More technology, more surveillance, and more personnel. However, with each subsequent attempt, the failure becomes more obvious. They don't realize it straight away, but they are crumbling. The longer they gaze into the unknown, the more it stares back. The more they push on the wall, the more it crumbles into mist. This is when the dread sets in. They showed no fear of you. They were horrified by what you represented. Evidence that there is more than what they perceive. It's more than they can manage. More than they could ever hope to handle. They try to reason it away. They convince themselves that there must be a reasonable explanation. They possess a great comprehension. This isn't about a technical breakdown. It is not about mistakes. It is no longer about the quest. This is about them. It's about what happens when someone spends their whole life believing in a structure, only to have it crumble in front of them. As a consequence, they stop one by one. They need to do it, not because they want to. The weight of the hunt becomes too much to bear. The quest becomes useless. The mission concludes, and they are left staring at an empty space where they anticipated you to be, only to discover you were not meant to be there in the first place. Because you are not lost. You aren't missing. You are exactly where you've always been, walking in a light. They were not meant to care after them. You become a mystery, a whisper, an impossibility that lingers long after they've abandoned their search. You are a story without a conclusion, a question without an answer. You do not conceal. You do not escape. You don't have to. You exist outside their grasp, not by coincidence or incident, but on design, and no amount of effort. That will never change, regardless of wealth or rank.